The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors: Woodland Stud, New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred, Brecken Farms, Stonewall Stud, IRT, it's your horse and our passion, Australasian Wide Garrard's Horse and Hound, Ricciero Racing Stables, Lincoln Farms, the clubs Alexandra Park, Cambridge Raceway, Ashburton Trotting Club, Addington Raceway and Harness Racing New Zealand. Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of Your Box Seat. Yes, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. A big thank you to them once again. No Michael Guerin. No, he's at Karaka, probably buying yearlings, but certainly a big part of the coverage out of there. A very important week in New Zealand racing, as it was last week. And this man was at Derby Day to see the upset win in the Vodafone Derby by Asterix. Matthew Cross, great to have you part of the show this year.
Absolutely, Greg. Same to you, and looking forward, as always, to jumping into the chair of one M. Guerin. No doubt he's out probably not even thinking about us right now, Greg. He'll have his mind totally fixated on the thoroughbred sales, and that's okay. It's nice for me to be able to jump in and do something a little bit different and link back up with you once again, Greg. And looking forward to the show. It looks as though there's plenty of good, juicy information to come as well.
Yeah, definitely, Matthew. We'll kick things off by looking at Auckland. Then we'll get an exclusive interview with the CEO from Harness Race New Zealand and Gary Woodham, touching on many of the issues in harness racing. And the backside of that will tap into the mind of Matthew Cross around finding you a couple of winners. But let's go back to Alexandra Park on Friday night. Very important meeting. And one of the biggest races, the Peter Brecken Memorial Caduceus Club, was won by Cover Girl, Bob Butt's team, absolutely flying. That's her getting to the outside in the colours of his grandfather RD, getting the business done. Post-race we'll hear from him, and also True Fantasy, who's fading on the inside there. Hear what Mark Purdon, co-trainer, had to say about her.
Cover Girl will just get it over Dance Till Dawn. Mickey Montana balanced up to get third.
Congratulations, Bob. Mission accomplished from a beautiful run in the race.
Yeah, it just worked out perfect, mate. It's just the way she needs it to sort of pan out, you know. Anytime we've sort of done any work with her, she hasn't been at her best, but she gets the draw against those good ones, she can certainly sprint on them.
All right, she's picked up a fair amount of money for a large group of owners, which is fantastic, because that's what you're out there to do.
Oh, for sure, yeah, no, and she's probably exceeded expectations, you know, so no, she's done a great job.
Yeah, she's got a beautiful run in transit, exactly the same run she got when she won the Harness Million.
Yeah, no, it worked out perfect again, so like I say, she can get that run. Yeah, she can certainly sprint with him.
Pretty wicked mission for you. I understand you were there less than about 4 hours.
Yeah, no, up and back. Sort of wasn't really planning on going up, but then I had nothing on last night, so I thought, I might as well go up.
Well, you got the driving fee anyway. What about from now? Where do you place her leading into some of those bigger Group 1s?
There's the prelude for the Oaks in a fortnight and then the Oaks, so she'll be there. And just hopefully she can get another similar draw and tuck away there and she'll be sprinting home.
Well, Mark, that was nothing like the best of True Fantasy. Any excuses there?
No, well, training's been really good, Mick, so I'm just at a loss to explain the performance, but we'll get a blood test taken early next week and see how that looks, and hopefully that'll tell the story.
I know she had to sit parked, but clearly even sitting parked, she would usually finish closer than that, so we would expect that there might be something just amiss or something minor.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I mean, certainly not the filly we know, and obviously there's just something behind it tonight, so it'll just be a matter of trying to put our finger on it.
Yeah, she was a disappointment, no question about that, Matthew. Bred by Sandy and Jan Yardley, Cover Girl. She's now won the Sales Series and now the Peter Brecken, following the same horse throughout, Dance Till Dawn, who's just given her a beautiful run in transit. And as Bob said, she can really sprint, can't she? And she's picked up a couple of those features. And if she gets that type of run again in the next couple of weeks, she'll be right in it.
Funny horse, Greg, really funny horse. We saw her in some basic races at Addington where she'd been able to power home and run some really good sectionals coming from the back, and then you put her up against the better horses and she'll run exactly the same. So I don't think she's the sort of horse that you'd sort of lob into an easy race and expect to get an easy kill with her, but then you put her up against the good ones and she's able to run like that. Super effort. Bob Butt's team going really well, and he's only 3 wins away from making it a century of victories. And I guess for the punters at home at the moment, you're running at a pretty high strike rate from that stable with plenty of winners coming, as well as Gold Chain, who we've seen up there in the north. Dance Till Dawn is very honest. What I would say about True Fantasy, though, Greg, is yes, on face value, probably a little bit disappointing, but when they're running the times that they did up front, home in 55 and change, True Fantasy is simply not programmed to run her races like that. She's the sort of horse where they run a 154 mile rate, go as hard as they can for the entire way. She'll be there at the finish. Sometimes those sort of races where the tempo maybe in the middle part isn't quite as genuine, it can trip up horses like True Fantasy. So I don't know how much of an overreaction there's been in the market with True Fantasy for the upcoming features, but I'd say she's still at the top of the pecking order. Write her off at your peril. As I say, Dance Till Dawn, very good. And Mickey Montana, a very honest effort running home as well. But Covergirl remarkably only won 2 races, Greg, and they've both been in feature affairs up there in the north for a big group of owners, a lot of identities in there. And like I say, the Bob Butt stable is certainly worth following at the moment.
Including one BB McCullum, Brendan McCullum. So great to have him as part of that ownership group. When you think about that race, though, since 1975, there's been some good horses win it. The likes of Kate's First, Undercover Lover, Adore Me, Only the Best, Amazing Dream also won this race too. So she's in pretty good company there. On to the Oaks market, $1.65 still for True Fantasy. Covergirl now $5. Mr. Kaplan, who was ineligible for that race, sits around the $6 mark, along with Remember Me and First Rose. Remember Me, I spoke to Crandall Getty about her. She's on her way back, Matthew, the 13th. I think she'll fly back here along with Krug, who we'll talk about later on. But Remember Me got closest to True Fantasy over Christmas, as we know, and she's a good, strong staying type. And I'm picking that off the back of her Menangle runs. Would have hardened her up a wee bit too.
Yeah, I'm a great believer in that, Greg, as I know a lot of horsemen and women are. Even a basic trip away to a Nelson or a Blenheim during the summer can really put a leg onto a horse. So the fact that Remember Me has gone to Australia, had those hard runs at Menangle, she'll come back a better horse. And look, I would say the $1.65 about right for True Fantasy. She's going to have to do it tough in those sort of races, though, Greg, because other drivers and stables have proven that if they can go forward and try and dictate, the likes of Dance Till Dawn, they will have a crack at staying in front. So they're not going to hand it to her, Greg, but the Purdon Cullen stable no doubt will have her peaking on the day. The way that Mickey Montana found the line, though, in the Peter Brecken Memorial, I feel as though she's the sort of horse that could be the upset, particularly over the Oaks journey if they go hard up front and she gets a bit of a snuggle midfield. So I think she's one of those horses that's definitely heading in the right direction.
Yep, hard to argue there. And of course, appropriately, we start the show today with a female race as it's International Women's Day. So hi to all of the ladies out there who, Matthew, no doubt are probably more attuned to this week's program than normal, given your presence on it.
Absolutely. Be careful what you say, Greg. Be careful what you say. And
I'll
always remember to pick the milk up on the way home. Don't forget, today of all day. Alabar
Classic is one of those races, isn't it, at Alexandra Park that we look forward to some of the features off the back of it. And Akuta, back in winning form. First run in 2005, some of the great horses, Bailey's Dream, Stunning Cullen, Smolder, Lazarus, Ultimates, Machete and Sniper have won it. And now Akuta has in an excellent time of 2:38.9. Let's hear what Mark Purdon had to say post-race.
And Mark Purdon for the Group 2 Alabar 3-year-old classic in fine style too. 2:38.9 is time. Bollinger.
Well, Mark, an unusual race, but Akuta was really good.
He was tonight, Mick. Yeah, I was really wrapped with him. Did a bit early, and when I popped out, he just sat there like a nice horse and got covered the last lap by the stablemate. But when I came out, he was really strong to the line.
With derbies coming up, maybe the right sort of run for him to learn something about racing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he just felt like more distance will suit him too, just the way he got to the line tonight.
Okay, does he head straight to the Derby, or would you look at a prelude type race and hope it gets off the ground?
Yeah, well, I'd look to the prelude, Mick. He's really only had 4 starts for the year, I think, now. So, another run under his belt before a hard 2700 would be probably ideal.
Second horse, I thought very good. First time looking at this track.
Yes, yeah, no, he's a nice horse, and we just had one run at them, but yeah, nice horse, and step up for him, so it was good to see he's taken that step.
What about Franco Indy? Had a bit of a mid-race dab. I thought he stuck on pretty well for third, but is at the moment on tonight Akuta a touch ahead of him?
Yeah, you'd probably have to say that, Mick. Yeah, I mean, he's gone good, but, Akuta did at both ends too.
Yeah, good to have him back in winning form, Matthew. He bolted away with the Alabar Classic. He'll go to the Prelude Friday week on the 18th. The majority of that field will be there that he had to take on, so it's hard to suggest that he'll get beaten in that. And going forward to the Derby, he looks a strong staying type.
You hit the nail on the head, Greg, staying. It's not like he's burst to the lead at the 100 and then sort of floundered heading to the post. He was fair flying as he went through the Alexandra Park winning post there on Friday night. So powerful. He's a horse that has such a good attitude as well, Greg. I would imagine that he's not too hard to train. Might cop a little bit of work being a good horse, but he doesn't look nervous at all. He's got great manners. He's got a beautiful action. He's got breeding. He's got the right trainer, the right driver, and so on and so on. Such a good horse, Akuta. And it's no secret that I'm one of his biggest fans, Greg, so I'd love to see him go out there and do the business. But it is horse racing, and Bollinger, like I said about Mickey Montana earlier, he's heading in the right direction, and you never really know, do you? There's always that one horse that pops up, and you look at it and think, gee, I didn't see that coming. But the improvement of horses within the space of a week, 2 weeks, can be phenomenal, particularly when they're racing at such a high level and high pressure situations. I guess the disappointment for me out of the race, Greg, was that we didn't get to see Beach Ball hit top gear, held up at a vital stage around the corner. He's a real free runner, and we saw him with his win the week before that he's a real Derby type. So I'm thinking that they'll be looking for a hard run in a fortnight's time in the lead up to the Derby, and a hard run 2,700 metres will certainly suit him, Beach Ball. So don't write him off, and I wouldn't be writing Franco Indy off either. Remember what he did on Size Stakes Day. His run was phenomenal, and 151. They'll get him right. I think we're in for a cracking race for the Great Northern Derby. I think it'll be one of either Akuta, Franco Indy, or a Beach Ball that was able to win it. I think Magic 4, they probably proved on Friday night that he might be best saved to use his brilliance at the back end of a race. They give it a go. Obviously didn't work out, but heading towards the Derby, he'd only have to run as well as what he did in the Harness Million to be a cheeky chance with the right sort of run. But I guess there are those sort of races where you have to push the boundaries with them and figure out what works and what doesn't. But clearly the All-Stars team have found out what works with Akuta, and he's low flying.
Yeah, $1.40 he is to win the Derby on the 25th of March. Beach Ball $5. He spoke to Brent Mangos. He said race just didn't pan out. He'd like to be in front and rolling. As you mentioned, Franco Indy's also $5. Bollinger 21, and Franco Mac also at the $21 quote. Copy that's also won that race, as we know. So it just shows you how good you have to be to do that. Speaking of Brent Mangos, let's go on to the Auckland Co-op Taxis free-for-all and see what unfolded here with South Coast Arden in front, Matthew, to his outside Self Assured. Now, we've seen this scenario before where Self Assured gets in front of South Coast Arden, as was the case in the New Zealand free-for-all, as was the case when South Coast Arden got relegated at Addington. And he's fought back and beaten him again. Home in 54.7, 26.9. Gee, this was a good battle. Yes, it probably would have suited South Coast Arden more if he'd been able to roll along a bit more. That's the words of Brent Mangos as opposed to what I'm thinking. But this is really laying down the gauntlet, if you like, for what's going to be an enormous occasion, the race on the 14th of April at Cambridge. The Founders Cup next week over 1,700, where Spankum's now joined the fray for that race. There's a lot to look forward to in the next 6 to 8 weeks, and that all culminates with the Auckland Cup on the 27th of May. So, yeah, there's going to be some battles here, Matthew.
I think Greg, Self-Assured, basically could not have gone any better than what he did, to be fair. Sitting outside of a horse like South Coast Arden, and he'd burnt everything. Self-Assured, when South Coast Arden headed him again, he'd given it his all by that point of the race. Having to sit parked outside of the giant pace that loves free rolling is not an easy task. And you mentioned those 3 times that South Coast Arden has been able to beat it. Self Assured's just had to cover more ground. It's going to be a fantastic affair, the race. I look forward to seeing South Coast Arden get a spot. I think it's imperative that we have him in the race and that Brent Mangos drives him like he has been, put him on the top end. Self Assured's so good. He's got nothing left to prove, Greg. Mathematically, it became such a challenge for him, that race. And watching it live, I thought, what a brave effort from both horses. And heading on to the race, wouldn't it be great if we were able to get a front row that consists of Laver, South Coast Arden, then you posse in other horses like Pembroke Playboy, who's shown a fair bit of brilliance as well, and all of those other slots left to come. It's going to be a brilliant race, and I applaud the Cambridge Club for what they've done with that. But yeah, I think South Coast Arden and Laver, they're two horses that would be must-haves if we want to make it a thrilling contest.
Yeah, $2.50 at the moment for Self Assured, $5 Spankum, $7 Mark Dan, who will go around in the Miracle Mile, hopefully on Saturday night if that race is able to be run. More about that shortly. South Coast Arden at the $7 quote. Krug $11, Pembroke Playboy 11, and then you're out to one change, and Spirit of St. Louis about the $13 mark. So yeah, interesting build up towards that race, and another great clash there at Alexandra Park last Friday night. Let's have a look at some of the babies that went around. Kalua Flyby, it's beautifully bred, this one, out of Ideal Flyby. She won 10 by betters, gets up on the inside in the Woodlands colours here in the hands of Peter Ferguson off the back of an excellent debut, darts through and gets the business done. Let's get to winning co-trainer Steve Telfer on the other side and find out what he thinks of it.
Kalua Flyby to take heat 2 of the Crombie Lockwood Bloodstock.
Well, Steve, you thought Kalua Flyby was pretty good before she started racing. Looked really good tonight. She obviously took improvement from the first time out.
Yeah, she did. She had a 9 draw the first time, tucked away the fence, and Peter had got her out late and she ran home really good. It was, besides not winning, it was a really good first up run. So in the last 2 weeks, she's done nothing but train on. The typical betters, the lights come through, and she's started to show a better spunk around the stable, and you know, she was really good tonight.
Very exciting time for Stonewall and the Telfers on the track. What about the horses you brought home from the sales? I take it they all didn't come back to the farm, so where have they all gone?
Well, all 13 came back to our farm, the one in the North Island, and we start breaking them in 10 days' time.
You do those yourself?
Yeah, we're going to do them ourselves.
Maybe you're not got enough work on.
No, Stocky thinks not. Anyway, yeah. No, and the 7, 8 from Christchurch went to Dancing on Moonlight, and they've all been out for 3 weeks, and I think they might have started some this week. So, yeah, they'll break in 10 down there, and we've got 13 here as well. We've already done 10 of our own, so yeah.
Incredibly busy time, but when you're buying those numbers, Matthew, it's not surprising. Kalua Flyby, $2.50 ahead of the notorious RGB, owned by the Hula Head Ladies. Thought there was nothing wrong with the He's Watching's fillies performance either, off the back of winning her previous start. Art Dior, $6, Forever Me about $9 in that Delightful Lady Young Guns Classic. What do you make of the early season 2-year-old fillies in the north?
Yeah, so hard to sort of gauge, isn't it? Steve Telfer's hit the nail on the head. You get yourself a better's delight like Kahula Flyby that keeps on improving. What more can you want? Get a nice trip in transit with a confidence-boosting run prior to that. They're always going to be hard to beat. And you see her at the winning post there. She wants to have a look around and dart about a little bit. I think there's plenty of improvement in her as well. And she's got so much scope, probably not a natural-looking 2-year-old on the track without being able to see her close up. She's going to grow into a beautiful filly, but hats off to them, Greg. They're doing wonderful things. They're spending a lot of money within the industry, and I think it's all positive to see them winning. But 33 yearlings on the books, gee, that's going to be a busy old time come next year, and they're certainly going to be a force to be reckoned with. This time next year in the young guns, that they could have half the fields basically for the 2- and 3-year-olds, and then the year after we'll be looking at Derbies and Oaks. I'd be surprised if they didn't have 2 to 3 runners in each with the stock that they've been able to pick up over the last few weeks. So hats off to them, Greg. And look, I think it's good for the punt as well, that stable. They're obviously a confident stable. If you see those colours on the race book, you're happy enough to back them. So, yeah, it's all positives.
Yeah, 5 of the 9 runners they had in that race. Here's a cracking contest between these two star boys in the north. Sevi, who was heavily backed in the colours thereof, Tony Hurley, and Merlin was looking to remain unbeaten. Had to sit outside him. Well, his stablemate actually sat outside him, sooner the better, and he gets to the outside of him, does Merlin, in the hands of Zachary Butcher, and only just gets Sevi right on the line. This was one very good homestretch battle, Matthew. Don't know that there's going to be that much between them going forward, but when you see that shot there, you can see Sevi's got Derby written all over him already, being by Vincent, and Merlin just that little bit more racy.
Yep, you've hit the nail on the head there, Greg. About 2.5 lengths quicker, the boys went than the girls on the night. Merlin's just the perfect 2-year-old racehorse. You see him out on the track. He's light on his feet. He's got excellent acceleration. He relaxes. He's very willing. And then you see Sevi. You're very right about him. He's probably a bit more scopy and say 6 to 12 months away from being the total package. So both very good in their own right. But Merlin's certainly at the top of the ladder at the moment. Zachary Butcher driving with confidence, as he always does when he pulls on the Purdon and Phelan colours. Hard to kind of maintain, these 2-year-olds at this stage of their career. So it's a good effort to be able to keep them at their peak. And I look forward to seeing what they can do in the coming weeks as well.
Yeah, both those young gun finals on the 25th. It's going to be a magic night there at Alexandra Park. Prices now, Merlin 180, Sevi 210, and then son of Mac is $11, sooner the better at the same sort of price. So that's a good look through. I think there's one more heat to go next week for those before they go into both of those finals. Excellent night there, Alexandra Park, last Friday night. Now with Garrards, we need to go across the Tasman, and we kick things off by a domination in the Derby. This is the Grant Dixon trained Leap of Fame. Son of Better's Delight out of Let Us Reason. She won 17, getting 3 wide there on the bend, Matthew. Just look at the way this bloke savages the line. This is before the weather packed up, of course, on Miracle Mile night. Getting into second, we know Major Perry well. He's in the Fitzpatrick colours coming through the middle there after trailing, but leap of faith. 54.2, 26.9, 154.1 mile rate over the 2400. Wow, what a performance.
Yeah, such a beautiful moving horse as well. Nice that slow-mo there. A horse with a bit of action in front. But once again, just the willingness of these sort of horses. We spoke about the horse prior, Merlin. They're just so willing when they're fit and peaking, and that's certainly the case. Good to see Grant Dixon get another good horse. Major Perry, honest as once again, but they were just no match for what looks to be a very special horse. And haven't times changed when they're running 250 overall for the 2400 metres? I thought I'd never see it. That's just phenomenal. And to be able to do it so strong at the back end, just a brilliant effort. It was a shame that the weather packed in after that, Greg. It was looking as though it was going to be a nice sort of lead into the Miracle Mile. But yeah, I'm pretty glad that they didn't run the Miracle Mile in the weather, and we look forward to that this weekend.
Yeah, he's 11 from 14 is Leap to Fame, and there is the potential, of course he's trained in Queensland, of a clash in the Queensland Derby in July with Akuta. Wouldn't that be rather mouth-watering even this far out? All right, let's go to Zeus Bromack and his win in the Ainsworth, which is about when the weather started packing up, of course, developed here in New Zealand by Zachary Butcher in the Paul and Gavin Fitzpatrick team. Gets the business done here. Stylish Memphis to her outside for Jack Trainer. Tried her heart out, Matthew. 888 in the red colours, getting home like a wildfire into 4th position, but it was the winning effort of Zeus Bromack. Now 9 from 32. He's won over 350,000 and he's got himself a Group 1.
Yeah, and Stylish Memphis so good finishing into second as well, Greg. But yeah, Zeus Bromack, he was always a neat horse over here in New Zealand. Once again, Better's Delight doing the business as a sire. Stylish Memphis loses, no fans. 2,400 metres. I just wonder with the recent racing over the mile, whether she would have been better suited there. I think she was pretty stiff not to get an opportunity in the Miracle Mile with her record, but good to see her doing the job. And 888 continues to pick up checks over there as well. It's been a good move from the team to send him over into Australia. But Bettor's Delight, the king once again, siring a Group 1 Quinella.
Yeah, and he's won over $500,000 now, has Triple Eight. So you're right, a really smart move sending him over there. Just on Stylish Memphis, rumours coming through that she's heading home and may well go via Cambridge for the race. Bit of negotiation work going on there because, of course, if there's no 3-year-olds and the mares only have one in it, she'll get barrier 1. She's a good follower of speed, so you wouldn't totally discount her chances, certainly not for a top 4 spot in the race. So there's some other news which hopefully we might be able to confirm come next week's show. Moving right along to Credit Master. Speaking of expat Kiwis doing the business, not only did Credit Master win this, look for Doff Your Cap out wide, Andover Love the widest of them, Temporale there battling on solidly in the Hackett-Wallers colours after being right in the fight early on, so was pretty brave. Son of Patrick was back in 9th, but Credit Master 153.1 for Matt Craven and Sophia Arvidsson. I spoke to Andrew Neal, former co-trainer of this horse, only had 2 runs in Australia, Matthew, and was disappointing in both of those. He said probably gone its career best run there, not only probably, it definitely has, and picks up a Group 1.
Yeah, first 3 home have Doff Your Cap, who was more than a handy horse over here in New Zealand, and Over Love, maybe just a posse in behind Doff Your Cap, but really $50,000 Group 1, $27,000 to the winner. Yeah, I don't think that sort of race stake-wise is doing the Group 1 sort of tag any justice, to be honest with you, Greg. It's probably a Group 3 or a listed sort of an affair. So, hey, good on the team for getting the business done, but it certainly doesn't shape as a Group 1 sort of race, those trot races over there. Doff Your Cap and Andover Love, as I mentioned, good over here in New Zealand. I look forward to seeing what they can do over there in Australia, particularly Andover Love. He looked like a horse here in New Zealand, Greg, where some good hard sprint racing would really suit him. He's got a good turn of foot, and with a bit of a posse from the Jack Trainer barn, I expect to see him do a pretty good job. But look, Group 1, 50,000, I think not.
Win number 13 in Credit Master's career. Wow. Alta Orlando. Don't worry about win number 13, Matthew. Win 22 for him, and he's gone past 950,000. That's one of the talking points out of this race. The other is Krug in front. He led them up in the hands of Anthony Butt. Most expected him to win, but when I spoke to Crandell Getty earlier in the week, he said, I've got a feeling he's thinking about other things, as we see Alta Orlando get over the top here and beat another expat Kiwi in lineup. Krug battling away in 6th position there. Let's concentrate on the winner. What a marvel he has been. He's still owned here in New Zealand, and that was his first run since placing in the Inter-Dominion final. Alta Orlando was 3rd in the Sire Stakes final way back in about 2014, I think it was, or 15. That's how far back it goes, Matthew. What a brave horse he's been.
I remember him, I think it might have been the sales race at Addington, Greg. Natalie Rasmussen drove him one night, and he was just a dead set rogue when he was a 2-year-old. An absolute handful of horse, and for him to still be going at the age that he is just fantastic. Robert and Jenna Dunn still sharing in the ownership, as well as the Taylor and the Evans family. And the rise of Jack Callaghan. Many probably wouldn't have heard of Jack Callaghan 3 to 6 months ago, but now with his association with Spirit of St. Louis and this victory of Alta Orlando, it just shows that if you're a young driver, all it takes is that one horse. And Jack Callaghan clearly has got the hands, he's got the mentor to go with it and the attitude, but he's got that one horse that's taken him that next step in Spirit of St. Louis. So, look, he'll be one of the better drivers over there in New South Wales for quite some time, along with his boss and mentor, Luke McCarthy, whose wife, Belinda's done a brilliant job with these sort of horses, Alta Orlando. So it's great to see. But Krug in behind, don't know what to make with him. What I would say, Greg, is they haven't really given him any chill at the start of his races over there. They've really made him burn hard. And I just wonder, being a colt, if he gets halfway up the straight and goes, you know, what more do you guys want from me? I look forward to seeing what they can do in terms of bringing him back here to New Zealand. We've seen him bounce back from some disappointing efforts in the past, and the fact that he is a colt, and Cran has mentioned that maybe he's thinking about other things, I'm willing to give him a reprieve and give him that opportunity to bounce back. But Yeah, look, there's only so many times I think horses can burn hard at the start of their races before they start to spit it a little bit. And I think that's been the case with Krug. Absolute superstar horse, as we know. Looking forward to seeing him bounce back when they can get him back here and get him peaking for the race.
Yeah, that size stakes I was trying to remember. Have Faith in Me beat Hug the Wind and Ultra Orlando. That's how far back you have to go for that. While we're reminiscing, the retirement of Tornado Valley was over the last 7 days or so. This is him in front, winning one of his Great Southern Stars. A remarkable horse, bred by Patina Gagler and Terry McMillan. So a lot of huge thrills for them. Not even sure I've said Bettina's second name right. Maybe you know it better than me, Matthew. But win 39 wins, over $1 million, 9 at Group 1 level and about 19 or 20 at Group 3 level. Just a remarkable horse, Tornado Valley. And congratulations to Andy and Kate Gath for the way they handled him throughout his career. He deserves a really nice retirement, doesn't he?
He absolutely does. Greg and his trainer, Andy Gath, he's just a dead set freak of nature with these trotters. Remarkably, Andy doesn't actually work the horses himself. He's more like a thoroughbred trainer. He stands at the gate and watches them work. He must just have such an incredible eye on him and the trust that he has in his wife, Kate, to provide him feedback. They've done a brilliant job with this horse, and once again, such a willing animal, and that's what you need to be when you want to perform at that sort of level. I think in one of his Great Southern Stars, a week out, they might not have even been thinking about racing, and then they decided to put him in if his work was all right. And then he's backed up and won 2 Group 1s in a night. Incredible horse, and I'm sure that has given the Mid-Canterbury region a great thrill as well, with Terry and Patina doing the breeding of him. So enjoy retirement, Tornado Valley. He's run around against some pretty good horses in his time and beaten them fair and square, Greg, and yet again another New Zealand bred doing it on the big stage.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. And of course, a sister to it, out of Begin, went through the SOAS, got passed in for about $40,000, so that breed is only going to continue on. The Miracle Mile, Matthew, we did a big preview of it last week. Is it King of Swing's race to lose from the barrier? He was pretty short on, about $1.55 from memory.
Yeah, look, without knowing too much about the early pace of horses over there in Australia, Greg, King of Swing's clearly the benchmark horse, if not in Australia, Australasia at the moment, with his total dominance, and particularly over the mile. Look, I'd go as far as saying if I had a mare, Greg, I'd breed to him when he goes to the breeding barn. He's so good. He's such a beautiful specimen. His sister, Better Twist, superstar filly, mother, broodmare of the year, and she got broodmare of the year, of course, at the sales, and had Better Twist, who got pacer of the year, and King of Swing, who was the Australian horse of the year, which is a superb record. So, you know, from a breeding perspective, he's going to do a good job out there in the barn. And I understand that he's coming toward the end of his career as well. He'll be push button off the gate, no doubt. There'll be a little bit of pressure at some point, and if he can absorb that and run 46, 47 and a bit, then that's really going to just help him in the breeding barn. Spirit of St. Louis has been so good. Mac Dan could be a bit of a danger. And Bondi Lockdown, he seems to be the horse that everybody wants to spruik, is saying could be the one to beat King of Swing. But he's just such a sexy horse, Greg, and he's got such a super record as well. Should be a good race, and that's, of course, on Saturday night.
Yeah, hopefully it will be. They've had a lot more rain there again, and Tuesday when we're recording this, unfortunately the meeting's been called off, but they are hoping the better weather is ahead of them. Big night there too, because I Need You Now makes her Australian debut against Wainui Creek, the Honey Queen, in race number 7, so that should be a good contest as well. So as we go to a break, we're going to have a look at All-American Lover winning the Hororata Cup there, right back in form she is, and a lot of targets ahead of her. And on the other side, we'll get into an interview with Gary Woodham, updating you on all things harness racing and some of the issues we have going forward.
All-American Lover won the Hororata Cup and beats Got You Covered.
Gary, as promised, you said we'd have a follow-up as to how things were trucking, and we're a couple of months into 2022 now.
Yep. So I said I'd look at 2022 in about 3 months' time, after it started. And you're right, we're only 2 months' time, but we're going to do the review now, Greg. I'm not happy. I'm very comfortable that the calendar will fulfil the obligation that we want it to. I'm not happy that we've done enough around programming and getting that right. So this week and the week before, I've been around a number of people in the Canterbury district to start with, having meetings with trainers and drivers and so forth. We're having a board 2-day session on it next week in Christchurch, and then on Thursday I'm going up north and having a meeting at ATC. We've got to change something pretty quickly, and you know the reason, because the numbers of horses aren't on those tracks, and I want to know why, what's going on.
Okay, we know that the calendar and the feature race calendar effectively changed with the horse birth date, and one thing that hasn't changed is that horse number issue, and the two great highlights, and this is no shot at the Auckland Trotting Club or the Northern region at all, but when we look at the Harness Million race meeting and we look at Friday night at Alexandra Park, we see a clear lack of numbers. That was a problem before we changed the calendar, so the architects in harness racing New Zealand, you must have been aware that that was going to be a challenge.
Yep, so that was all put there. The rollout of this season's dates were already defined because that's done a year before. So those dates haven't been changed, and with the numbers that we've now moved to, and they're lower than they are when the architects were even starting this process. So between Cambridge and Auckland, we've got less numbers than we had this time last year again, but we've still got the same amount of meetings. So we've got to work out what we do. And there's a couple of answers for that, but it won't be me making those final decisions. It will be a group of people that's their livelihood. So it's people in the region and, of course, HRNZ and the board. But we do have to look at those numbers pretty seriously to see if we can carry on that many race meetings.
Well, I think you've answered my next question. Clearly, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, well, let's see where we're at, because while we get statistics come through and people fill in the online system and tell us how many horses they've got in their stable, what horses at work and what grade, some people might not be doing that. We might not have the full picture, so I want to give people the opportunity to give us the information, and then from there we make the decision of what we do.
Gary, I've seen some statistics around 4-year-old and older and how many rating 70 and above horses we have. There's only 45 throughout the whole country in that category, of which 26 of them are in Canterbury. There's only about 10 or 11 in Auckland, half a dozen in Southland, one in the CD. It's a major problem. Also, we only have 7 horses rated above 100.
Yeah, we've, I guess if we turn the clock back and we look about last 9 months, there's one hell of a lot of export taken place. There's been some big money paid from America and Australia. Now that's slowed up a little bit of late, and when I say a little bit of late, I'm really only talking about the last 2 months. So we're now taking that pain. Those numbers are more than what we actually estimated when we were doing our calendar change. But it does show you that the thinking from the architects, that when you get a group of horses, or rated horses, to a certain size, they're just going to have to be in one place. We can't put race meetings on across the whole of the country when you've only got 2 or 3 horses in a region. They're going to have to move.
But those horses, for example, Canterbury horses make up more than half of them. When they look up and see that they've got to race Self-Assured or South Coast Arden or in the 3-year-old region, they have to race Akuta or Franco Indy, they're not going to travel to Auckland and stay up there for 3 or 4 months. No. There's no chance that that's going to happen. And that was never going to happen because a trainer either A, has to go there themselves, B, send a staff member, and what happens to their stable down here, there are a number of factors that go into that. And I don't believe that they were ever going to go.
Yeah, well, I trusted the numbers and I trust the architects, and I said we're going to review it. So if we've got it wrong, we'll change it.
So you are reviewing
it? Yeah, and if we've got it wrong, we'll review it. But as an example, when the architects got together, there were 24 horses in open class that were available to race together. Now we're talking 13. It's a big change in a very short period of time.
Are we getting close, Gary, to having an export fee?
I'd like to think so.
Australia do it.
Yep, and I'd like to think so. I've got a fair bit of opposition, and it's from an area that I didn't think I'd get it, and that was the breeders. They're against it. And so I'll be having more of that. That's coming back to the table, Greg, because again, you know, those horses have been trained, have been raced in New Zealand and
Developed here,
and we just let them go.
Yep.
Other countries don't just let them go. There's a fee for moving.
Gary, harness race in New Zealand, as I understand it, collect the revenue from turnover via the TAB and distribute it via stakes and also a venue payment. Is that a fair summation?
Yeah, we get the GBR, the gross betting revenue.
Right.
From the turnover, you have to do payouts because people do win.
Yep.
And we get that part left, which is gross betting revenue.
Yep. Okay, so therefore, is it not your responsibility to maximise, A, the number of horses that race at a venue, because we know that directly correlates to what gets turned over, and B, maximise the turnover on that venue by its placement at the most profitable time. For example, a Friday night at Addington Raceway will turn over, if it's got 100 horses, it'll turn over $1 million. It's pretty stock standard, that's what it does.
Yeah, it does.
Other venues that are racing either on a Friday night or a Thursday night or a Sunday, they'll turn over half that turnover, but they might have the best time slot. This has got to be a heck of a challenge for you guys to look at it holistically rather than from an individual club point of view, which is the old way it was structured because Hororata had that date and they raced on that day, or Cheviot had that date, they raced on that day, or Cambridge raced on that Friday night because that's where their feature race meetings were. The whole landscape's changed.
Well, that's a great summary of the issue, really is. Wish I had the answer within one sentence, but I don't. So you've basically explained to everybody here the problems that we've got, and they are right on, hit the nail on the head. To actually solve that is like peeling back an onion. It's going to take us time, and you've got so many pieces of the puzzle. You just mentioned clubs, well, there's 40 of them, and they all want their day in the sun. I get that, but we can't afford it anymore. We all want to have a premier race meeting, but we don't have enough premier horses to run premier. It's basically a whiteboard session going back and say, what does Premier look like? What are the, and some clubs will unfortunately, as we move through the changes, miss on a day that they've always had. But I'd still like to think that clubs get represented in their regions and their communities. It's a requirement under the Act. So we've got to make sure that we follow the rules, but we also maximise the output. And it's bloody hard. Mm. There's so many moving parts to it and so many emotions and history and legacy. And if I had the answer, I'd give it to you. And I'll be honest with you, in front of you today, I don't have the answer yet. Am I trying to get it? Bloody oath we are.
Yeah, because that's how we earn our money. We earn our money by virtue of turnover, and your responsibility is to deliver that back to the stakeholders.
That's right.
So therefore, you have to maximise it. And if that comes as a consequence to some clubs, then I know they're going to hate me saying it, but it's actually reality, because a Southland race meeting running on a Wednesday that turns over 400,000 or 500,000 surely is not profitable.
Well, on some of them they are, Greg, because their costs are a lot lower and their stakes are lower, so they're washing their face. So you do have to look at them individually. But the issue we need to understand is we've got a partner that helps us with wagering. It's the TAB.
Yep.
And we need to work closer together. There's no two ways about it. We're not working well enough together, in my view.
Are we getting a fair, for want of a better term, suck of the sav? Because it doesn't seem to be a level playing field. And aren't you now in competition with the other two codes in many respects?
Yeah, we are. So we are in competition, and it will look to everybody that Thorough gets more of a go on TV trackside and shows, and they do. They are a bigger parcel to the TAB. If we look at their turnover, they can turn over in one race at Ellerslie on a Saturday what we turn over on a whole race meeting in Timaru or Ashburton or Cambridge. So we're behind the 8 ball. But we are having those discussions. I was in Wellington last week, Thursday, Friday, having those exact discussions that we're talking about right now of how we actually up our game and get some more representation. There's other options. Do we actually put on our own channel? Do we promote our own thing? Do we go to Sky and get our own Sky channel and do that ourselves? There's a whole lot of things we can look at, but I'd like to do it in the confound of being a partner in a partnership. So we're having those conversations.
Gary, are we at risk of becoming the third code here? Is that maybe taking it a step too far? Because it certainly happened in some states of Australia.
Well, let's be fair. If we don't do anything and just let life pass us by, we will be the third code. I'm not willing to do that, Greg. I came into this job to go the opposite way. But it will take everybody to understand what their part is and not to keep putting up barriers, but to say, well, let's give this a go. We've had a pretty good response to date, but we've got a long way to go, further than I thought we had to go.
You talked about our revenue streams before. I heard Bernard Saundry from the Thoroughbred Code say the other day they have a partnership with 28 bookmakers in Australia, or entities in Australia, which obviously generates revenue for them. I assume it's a 2% or something like that. How many do Harness Racing have, or are those negotiations ongoing?
So we all have them.
Right.
The 3 codes have them. That negotiation was done by Racing New Zealand,
Yep.
which is the 3 codes together. So the 3 CEOs, 3 finance managers from that, we've been doing all that work collectively. There's a whole lot of things that we do collectively. We don't really talk about what RNZ's all about, but very important, and will become more important to the sustainability of racing in New Zealand for us all going forward, because a lot of those contractual obligations were once with the New Zealand Racing Board. When the Act came in, they become the TAB effectively. Those responsibilities now come over to Racing New Zealand, which is a holding company. It doesn't even have a brand, it has a brand, but it's not actually a company. We're creating something and we're building to it, but we are working as one, the 3 of us. So all those contracts will come over to Racing New Zealand, which is really effectively 3 codes.
Just wanted to go back to maximising the field numbers and sizes. Is there a place for a program to be trialled where there's an incentive? Because let's face it, the trainers make the decision where the horses go.
Yep.
And for the industry, having 90 to 100 horses at Addington or in a heyday Auckland is not enough, and yet 2 days later on a Sunday afternoon 40 or 50 other, and it really is a Canterbury thing more than anything, 40 or 50 other horses will go to Motukarara, Meth and Rangiora, and they'll turn over 1.3, 1.2, and their peak times 1.4. But our best return per starter is at Addington on a Friday night. That's fact. I'm not making that up. That is absolutely fact.
No, it is.
Therefore, for the whole industry, having more starters at Addington, does that come by way of an incentive for, like Auckland did a few years ago, where you got paid per starter? The trainer, it got capped. You know, if you had 3 starters, you got $100 per horse, but I think over 3, you didn't get any more. But it meant that if they had a truck of 5, they'd bring 5 horses to the races. Could we trial on a short-term basis that if a horse starts at a feature venue, Addington or Auckland, they drop 2 points in that period? Is that a possibility? I'm just chucking some ideas out there, and I'm not saying that they're the answer, but we have to try some things.
So that's the exact reason why we've started to do the review now.
Yep.
And started talking to people, because there's 2 or 3 ideas you've given me. There's probably another 20 out there.
And they're not new, Gary.
No,
they're not new.
I've heard another 5 along the way, and one being, closed noms. Put the programs out there, make them nominate, don't show them what it is, so they can't just pick and choosing, okay, I'm not going here, I'm going to go there, and that's where they get put. And it might come down to it, I'm not saying it will, it might get down to it that HRNZ make those decisions where we're putting the horses so that we maximise the return, because it is our obligation under the Act and the rules allow us to do that. That's a big stick. I don't want to get there too quick. I want to be able to work with people and bring us all along for the ride. But if we don't get where we want to, I am not scared to make the hard decisions and change it so that we don't become the 3rd code.
Yeah, because the standardisation, and I'm hot on this, mainly because we run the box seat program, but week to week to week, the nomination withdrawals and when the fields come out changes. Whereas I look across the Tasman, they don't do everything perfectly right, but in Sydney, Melbourne in particular, probably Brisbane as well, nomination withdrawal times are standardised. The fields are out on a Monday, worst case by lunchtime on a Tuesday. Because again, you're exposing the form and the race meetings to your potential investors, the punters, a lot earlier. Sometimes, Gary, our fields don't come out till... Well, there was one scenario there with Auckland where they didn't come out on a Wednesday for a Friday race meeting. Well, that's just hopeless.
Yeah.
You can't get any traction with that.
No, agreed, but I think you'll find Monday was a public holiday on that one that you're talking about. But I agree, it's not good enough. So we have to be able to bring those that are responsible for putting the programs together and working with the nominations with our team inside HRNZ and do better and that is already way on its way to changing. But there's no excuse for it. We're not doing well enough.
There's a lot of balls in the air here, isn't there?
Yeah, it's I don't know how to. I was going to say the word exciting. It's not exciting, but it definitely is challenging.
Yeah.
And I'm not scared of a challenge. So I find it quite interesting that we're into this stage and we're going to make some changes, because those changes will be for the better, and that's what I signed up for. Again, I'll remind us why I signed up for this job. But I didn't quite realise we'd be having so many at one particular time. So stress levels are up, no two ways about it. Not going to get any greyer. I'm already as grey as I can, so I think the next thing is I lose the hair. But I do have faith that we have enough people that care, that will work together over the next 3 to 6 weeks and nail a lot of this stuff. We won't get it right again, but we've got to keep changing it. But going back to what you said, we're not there yet, and we've got some bigger holes than we first thought we did. And we don't run away from them, we sort them out collectively.
You're in the home straight in your box seat. Let's go back to Cambridge from the middle of last week and see the debut training success for Shane Butcher, with Sharkeen getting through on the inside of a very much in form Monica Ranger. She's winning them at will at the moment. She picked up a couple because she also won with Zarias for Zachary Butcher. So well done to you, Shane, adding to the name of, or the family folklore, if you like, in the training ranks, and Sharkeen getting Shane Butcher his first success as a trainer. Don't forget about the Lincoln Farms partnerships as well. They have so many options for you on their website, lincolnfarms.co.nz. Get a hold of Ian Middleton there, mobile 021 109 8911, or Ian at lincolnfarms.co.nz, and have a chat to him about opportunities they have available to you. Team Teal's almost at $10,000. Finishes up about the middle of next week, in fact the Tuesday, where the Manawatu meeting is, so things are ticking along quite nicely. Thanks very much there. Awards night last Saturday night. We need to have a look at a bit of a summary of some of the key awards from there. Starting with the Horse of the Year, Sunday Sun was not only the Horse of the Year, the Trotter of the Year. Better Twist took out the Pacer of the Year. Tony Abel for his contribution over such a long period of time. Trainer Robert Dunn got his second premiership. Congratulations to you, RJ. Blair Orange, his fourth premiership. And John Morrison, the leading junior driver. So some of the big awards there. Matthew, Sunday Sun joining the likes of Mombay, I Can Do's It, Take a Moment, Lyle Creek, since the turn of the century in terms of being able to be the Horse of the Year. That takes some doing, but he's just such a star performer. He thoroughly deserved that on Saturday night.
Yeah, he did, Greg, and he was back at the trials today as well out there at Rangiora. He had a good hit out with Mataderos and Five Wise Men. They had their own trial together and they zipped up a pretty good final 400 metres there, and from all reports he looked in fantastic fashion. So looking forward to seeing him back, and he's probably only just in his peak of his career, Greg, so looking forward to seeing if he can hold on to his dominance over the next 12 months.
Yeah, congratulations to Brecon Farms as well. Not only the Broodmare of the Year with Twist and Twirl, but the Breeders of the Year, something they achieved back in 2012 to boot. Addington Raceway have a great thing for you if you're doing your punting form. It's called the Herb, the Ultimate Race Book. Here's some of the statistical stuff that they put up for you. You wanted to know what is time equivalent. It explains it down there on the bottom for you. Talks about how quickly they're away from a stand or a mobile. Sam Hara basically couldn't win its race because it ran home in 54.23 and ran into fourth position. So that just shows you how quickly, compared to the leader, Sam Hara was able to get home. We have not only the pacing horses, but also the trotting as well. And here was Gazman. You saw how quickly he got off the gate, got the lead, Matthew, and got home in 2:24.9. That made him basically unbeatable because Sue Princess tried to, and she rated 158.1 from her position.
I think this is a great asset, Greg, not only for punters but for trainers and horsemen as well. you go to the races and you think to yourself, okay, well, this horse has run 4th or 5th in just battle. But then you look at the Ultimate Racebook and you think, well, I'm actually being a little bit unfair on this horse because it could not have gone any better. Time equivalent, basically, without going too much into it, means if your horse sits off the track 3 wide, they condense your time as to what it would be if it was on the pegs. And often you'll hear Michael Guerin say that horses are costing themselves being one off 3 lengths on every bend. It's not everyone's cup of tea, and I'm sure there's people out there that think, whatever, just be quiet, don't want to hear it. But for some people, myself included, I think if anything, when reviewing a race, you can be a little bit too harsh on some horses and thinking that they went poor, when actually the Ultimate Racebook will tell you that they went well. I'd probably look, Greg, if anything, at the time equivalent overall, the mile rate and the half, not too much else. If it's sort of, you want to look at the depth of the race as well and how much pressure there was early too. So there's plenty to look into, but if you can kind of get the hang of it, I think there's certainly some winners to be found on there. Along with Stride Master, if you combine the two,
that's right,
plus your own opinion, your chances are a lot higher.
Yeah, that's basically just a summary, but every horse is covered in the Ultimate Racebook. Let's get into our preview, Matthew. Cambridge on Thursday night. A couple of horses I wanted to focus in on. The Denny Johnston Waikato Guineas. This is Blame It On The Night, who came down for the Sire Stakes final to its outside Mr Ibiza, to its inside Major Perry. So this is a great form line for this race.
Absolutely it is, Greg. And Blame It On The Night's the sort of horse that I spoke about, horses before that have just kept going up. And when he came down to Christchurch, he probably had that scope without the full amount of strength to go with it. We saw him just wanted to hang a little bit in a couple of his races. So, look, I look forward to seeing what he's able to do. And Last Tango in Heaven as well. Takes on a pretty good field in the Waikato Cup. Race number 6, Greg, but he's a quality horse, Last Tango in Heaven, hence the 35 metres. New York Minute looks a good chance if he's able to bring his best. And I look forward to seeing how Romeo Shard comes back, because he looked as though he had the credentials to go through to open class when he came down here to Christchurch over Cup week. But Blame It On The Night certainly won't be easy off, Last Tango in Heaven, Greg, won't be easy off the 35, but does look the class horse there.
Yeah, he certainly is. I spoke to Brent Mangos about Romeo Shard. He says he's really pleased with the way he's coming up, but it won't be easy for him. Let's have a look at Gazman. We saw on the Ultimate Racebook before just how well he did go. That's him in front. He'll take some beating again, although it's a deep race, that one. Bit of Muscle, Phoebe Imperial, Sue Princess, Miss Alyssa. Did you have a selection out of that one?
Look, Greg, it's a hard one. It is a hard one. That'll be a grouse race. I think Gazman, without being disrespectful to him at this stage of his career, he just needs everything to go his way. He doesn't need anything to upset him. So higher calibre of horse, a little bit more pressure at the start. He's going to have to be on his A game, Gazman. There's no doubt that he can run the time, but so can Bit of Muscle. He's such a good horse. I think with the barrier draw advantage as well, Bit of Muscle might be the horse to beat him there. And Phoebe Imperial at the moment, slow flying as well. And you can't take away from My Moments Now, who's won its last 2. That's just about the race of the night at Addington. If I had to go in one, Greg, I'd be with Bit of Muscle. There's a few horses in there with junior claims on, so they'll be looking to be pretty competitive. But I think Bit of Muscle, all things being equal, with a bit of freshen up between his last couple of runs, he'll be the horse to beat.
The Gerrard's Horse and Hound handicap pace has got Shan Noble, the Falcon, Better Twist, Laver, Classy Brigade. That'll be worth a look to there on Friday night. We need to have a look at these couple of races on Saturday, though. Treacherous Gal, that's her in front, just getting the business done here. But speaking to Regan Todd, he said she might be a better follower. Looks a really good chance in what is a good race there on Saturday. Good program too. Currently second favourite is Treacherous Gal behind My Caitlin Denario, who's drawn to her inside. Here's Tealor Toll. It just keeps on winning, Matthew. This is 2 starts back. It goes round in the Cup, taking on the likes of a fresh up Paddy Proudfoot. Memphis, Tennessee in there, Chuckles, Dr. Tim. They've been competitive, all of these races, and Peroni, who's an improving type.
And you throw in Above and Beyond as well. I think Above and Beyond, they've really chosen a good race for him to go into off the 20 metres. He's been running around in some strong country cups horses, and I firmly believe Above and Beyond is Robert and Jenna Dunn's next open class performer. I'm pretty sure he'll be in the cup later on this year, Above and Beyond. So making his way down there, that'll be a cracking go. Some really good even races My Caitlin Denario treacherous gallop, yeah, maybe Nathan's horse has a chance of turning the tables with a better sort of run. But looking forward to that coverage there on Saturday.
All right, American Dealer, of course, winning first up in the States as well in 49.2. Great run from it, beating On the Cards. Just wanted to wrap up the meetings we have. So if you're watching this on Wednesday, you've got Oamaru's 9 races, 1:49 the start time. The Waikato Bay Plenty meeting starts at 5:31. Good program there. Addington with the 8 races just after 5 o'clock for them. Northern Southern with the 11 races on Saturday, 12:20. And Westport racing at Rangiora. So Addington taking over from the first day of that Westport normal meeting, and then Rangiora on Sunday. What about our best bets, Matthew? You found one for us?
I found one, Greg. I have found one. Friday night at the Addington Raceway, you spoke about the Garage Horse and Hound handicap. Laver, 10 metres, unruly. If he gets in front, I don't think they'll beat him. Anything around that $1.85, $2 mark, I think I'll be happy to take that and run. What about yourself? And how have you been going? Have you been having a good run or not? And what about Michael? Am I sort of jumping into a chair that's been full of confidence on the punt lately, or has he been having
shorties lately, to be fair. It's been a bit short, so we need to find a bit more value. I don't think we'll get it and come together in the last race on Saturday, but I think for the Bob Butt team, it will win with Carter Dalgetty aboard. And Jason Broad, speaking of Bob Butt, he's gone for himself in race 8, number 11 at the same meeting. So, yep, with Rakiro Racing, they are our best bets of the week. Matthew, thank you so much for your contribution, filling in for 1M Gurin, and looking forward to you calling the action once again out of Addington on Friday night.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me on. And look, I'll flick you my number if you ever need me to come back on here. I'd be more than happy to fill the seat. Probably a better looking version of Michael Guerin, as some would say. So, yeah.
Goes without saying, Matthew. We'll look forward to that, and we'll see you in 7 days' time.